Just gonna forward, backwards. Okay, I'm good. How's everyone doing? Still awake? Still good? I find a nice trick. If it's been a long day, so if you start dozing off, especially I'm nearing the end, that's fine. Just rub your ears, just like this. Helps wake you up. I think it has something to do with acupuncture. Trust me.
Also, get rid of hiccups.
Get rid of hiccups as well? Quick tip.
Or get arrested for looking at it.
There you go.
That'll wake you up.
You can also try holding your breath.
Yeah.
Just don't hold your breath too long or you will pass out. So, hi everybody. My name is Christopher. I'm sorry I wasn't here earlier. I would have loved to have networked with all of you beforehand. And I'm sorry that I'm leaving early because I would have loved to have networked with all of you afterwards. One thing that wasn't mentioned in my bio is that my role at Access Alliance actually transitioned, and now I am helping not-for-profit organizations communicate more effectively with my own communications practice. I'm working with community health centers here in the city and a rural hospital in Alliston, Ontario, to help them with their communications, everything from social media to media relations. And today, I'm happy to talk to you about LinkedIn because it's been a major influence on my career. And am I pressing the wrong button?
Yeah, the second one down.
There we go. It's been a major influence on my career and the kinds of opportunities I've been able to take advantage of. Because, like was mentioned, LinkedIn is a fabulous tool for putting your personal brand out there, but also for doing research on people that you want to connect with. And for me personally, LinkedIn is one of my favorite tools for connecting with other professionals because I can research by industry, I can research by city, I can research just by going through my status updates and seeing what interesting things people are putting out there and connecting with people who have interests that are similar to my own. So LinkedIn, if you aren't already using it, can be a really effective tool both for networking and just for learning more about industries that you might be interested in. So today we're going to talk about kind of tips to use LinkedIn more effectively and certain ways you can improve your profile right off the bat. Right after leaving here, you can just go through this list and improve your profile so you're able to connect with people more effectively. So we're going to start with a brief intro to what is LinkedIn for those of you who might not be connected on LinkedIn. I like to think of it as a professional version of Facebook, where with Facebook you may have some embarrassing photos or worries about wild nights out and people having tagged you in those pictures. With LinkedIn, there's not really any of that. It's understood to be a professional network. So you're sharing news, it's kind of your online resume, and it's really popular, and it's just increased in popularity over the last few years. When I first did this presentation in particular, it was about 2 years ago. Facebook had 1.6 billion monthly active users. As you can see, in the last 2 years, it's grown to 2.13 billion. And LinkedIn hasn't grown quite as much, obviously, but it has grown since that time. So it is a relevant network to be on. And one that employers are using increasingly both to find applicable candidates for the positions that they're posting and to screen people when those candidates do apply for positions. Your LinkedIn profile will often be the first page that employers see when they research your name. When I type in my own name going into Google Incognito or into Google Chrome Incognito, I'm not Trot Nixon, I'm actually the #1 search, and it's my LinkedIn profile that appears. I do have a personal website. Personal website has not been SEO optimized, so it's not the best example of putting myself at the top of the Google ranking, but as you can see, if someone were to type in my name, the first thing they would see is my LinkedIn profile. So it's up to me to ensure that I'm putting my best foot forward when someone does search me, because first impressions count. So, how do we make a good first impression? What are 10 tips for creating a better profile? Number 1, fill out your profile. I mean, it's a pretty self-explanatory one, but LinkedIn gives you very clear areas for you to show people who you are. That includes your headline, profile summary, your work experience, educational experience. Things that people don't necessarily include as much of is projects that you've worked on, professional organizations, languages that you speak, honors and awards, and volunteer experience. When I was first starting off in communications, my volunteer experience was basically the only experience I had. So that was my best way of putting out there the kinds of skills that I've acquired, right? So don't be afraid to put that not just on your LinkedIn profile, but into your resume as well, right? Volunteer experience matters. And also your certifications. Going through this checklist and making sure that your profile is completely filled out will put you a few steps ahead. The work you do in the upfront will define your experience on the platform. The more work you put into making your profile complete, the more complete a picture people who are looking you up will have. So make sure you do that work, even though it might take some time to actually go through everything and make sure everything is complete. It will pay off in the end. Number 2, connect with other professionals. LinkedIn does a pretty good job of making suggestions of people that you might want to connect with, and it's to your benefit to connect with those people not only by clicking that connection and making that online connection with them, but actually making a connection with them, messaging them and saying, hey, I just joined LinkedIn, what's going on? Let's chat. You don't necessarily have to go for coffee with everyone, but making that genuine connection with people will help build your actual network. And LinkedIn is a great tool for making that first initial contact. This is a social platform, so be social. Don't be afraid to actually reach out to people on LinkedIn. It's a professional networking tool. Number 3, join relevant groups. This is another tool that I don't think people use as much as they should. LinkedIn does have groups, and really interesting groups if you can find the one that is right for you. Groups for any range of industries or any range of interests. So you just have to go search for whatever industry you're interested in, and there will be several groups that you're able to join. Some are private, some are public. Some you may have to wait for the invitation to go through, but it's to your benefit to try and increase your network just outside of your direct circle. And you do that by engaging in conversations with people. These groups are a great way to engage in those conversations. There are more than 2 million groups on LinkedIn today, 2 million plus. People who participate in conversations in groups are 5 times more likely to get profile views from people outside of their network. Getting profile views from people inside your network is the easy part. People that you have on your email list, people that you go to school with or work with, that takes no effort at all. It's getting the profile views from people outside of your network that will really make the difference in the long run. And participating in groups is one great way to try and facilitate that connection. Be selective about the job roles that you put onto your LinkedIn profile. Much like you curate your resumes when you send them out to employers, you want to curate your LinkedIn profile to your future ambitions. It shouldn't be just a complete list of everything you do, especially if some of those jobs are not relevant to what you want to do at all. One of the first jobs I did coming out of school was working at the FedEx call center. I don't have the FedEx call center on my LinkedIn profile because I never want to work in a call center again. If I did want to work in a call center, that would be the first thing on the list. I don't want to work in a call center. So if you have relevant volunteer experience, I would actually put that first as opposed to putting jobs that aren't relevant. I can understand the desire to put work experience on there that might not be relevant because you don't want to have significant gaps, you don't want to show that you don't have as much job experience necessarily, but it may not play out to your benefit in the long run if you're putting a lot of job roles that aren't relevant to your future aspirations. So keep it as focused as you can. Focus on where you want to be, not necessarily where you are. Show off projects, work samples, and volunteer work, just reinforcing the completion of your profile. It's not just the work experience that you want to show off on your LinkedIn profile, it's everything that you're doing and everything that you're involved in, right? Someone I worked with called it franchising your work, like taking advantage of the work that you're doing and using that to sell yourself, because people will see that you're working at X company, but people won't know what you're doing unless you actually put it out there. If you're involved in a project that you're really proud of, put it on LinkedIn. If you're involved in volunteer work that you're really proud of, put it on LinkedIn. Show people what you're doing in a very tangible way so they can connect with who you are. Leverage LinkedIn Pulse. LinkedIn Pulse is almost like your own personal blog on LinkedIn. I've personally seen within my network, people are increasingly using LinkedIn Pulse to put their views out there in a more fulsome way. In the same way that you can have short status updates in Facebook, you can have short status updates in LinkedIn. LinkedIn Pulse are those kind of long form updates where you're talking about a specific topic that might be interesting or timely. So if you have something that you have knowledge about and you want to write about in a more fulsome way, LinkedIn Pulse is a great way to do that. Let those pearly whites shine. Make sure you have a profile picture up there and smile. People with a profile picture receive up to 14 times more views than those without one. It doesn't have to necessarily be this wide of a smile, but you want to show you're friendly, you know? You want to show you're personable. You want people to be able to connect with you. And a smile, it's an easy way to connect with people, right? I'm connecting with you right now. You feel good, right? Okay. So smile in your profile pictures if you can. Make use of LinkedIn to do research. LinkedIn has various search functions to find people and organizations. As someone who works independently now, I'm using this more heavily than ever before. Because when I want to find someone within an organization, first thing I do is go to the organization's website. I try to see if I can find the relevant person. Next thing I do is go to LinkedIn, see if I can find the person I want to connect with there. Because it's basically a directory of the people who work in the company who are active on social media. Not everyone who works in the company will have that listed on their LinkedIn profile necessarily, but there are a good portion of people who do use LinkedIn, so it's a good method of trying to reach out to folks who work within companies that you're interested in, or just finding out about companies in general. Another thing that I used to do when I first started off in communications was look at companies in a specific field, because originally I was interested in financial communications. So I would look up the financial industry in Toronto, would look at companies in Toronto, then segment by financial industry, and then I essentially had a list of companies that I could reach out to just to talk to people and figure out, is this something I actually want to do long term? So LinkedIn is actually a really great research tool once you start using those search functions more effectively. So don't be afraid to kind of dig in and find out about the functionality of the social media tool that you're on. Give and receive recommendations. We're almost done. It's a really valuable way of connecting with people that you have worked with. Giving those recommendations is social proof. And that kind of social proof ensures that when someone who doesn't know the person goes onto their social media profile, onto their LinkedIn profile specifically, they have that kind of, it's like a recommendation, right? A testimonial from the people that you're connected with. If you can get that from others, that's amazing. And the best way to get that from others is to give them yourself, right? So if you have worked with someone and you have had a positive experience, don't be afraid to give them a recommendation about the kinds of skills that they have, about the kinds of things that they brought to the table when they were working with you, about your experience working with them, because that sort of recommendation is often reciprocated if they've had a positive experience with you, right? Oh, shucks. My formatting went all wonky. Number 10, be in it to win it. If you don't already have a profile, make one today. Really easy. You can't actually benefit from LinkedIn if you don't have a profile. It seems self-explanatory, but it has to be said. And that's it.